Shalom Aleichem. This is Fundamentally Mormon coming to you live on this 15th day of January 2020. My name is Mark Lichtenwalter, your host. The guest call-in number is 917-889-8827. That's 917-889-8827. We are continuing on with our reading of Who Crucified Christ by OGDEN KRAUT. We are in chapter 3. Easter messages. So let's get right into the reading, and let's see here. And then after the reading, I will be opening up the phone lines for any questions or comments, if there are any. I'm also posting this on my all the text to this reading today at facebook.com/LAZURUS1977. That's my Facebook page. And I'm also posting to my groups only, because for some reason yesterday, Facebook decided to ban me both on my personal account and on this public account from posting or joining any groups that I do not admin. So that's unfortunate. I don't know why they do that, but they did. So today we are going to just be posting an LDS Last Days Prophecy and Gospel Discussions, Teachings of the Prophet Joseph Smith, School of the Prophets, Lectures on Faith, let's see here, LDS Gospel Mysteries, and Latter-day Unity. I will also be posting on my pages. Let's see, some of those pages are, hold on here. Latter-day Unity. Just trying to pull them up so I can see which ones. Messiah Ben Joseph, Church of the Living Messiah, Zion's Redemption Bookstore, The Kingdom of God or Nothing, The One Mighty and Strong, The Second Witness of the Father, and Teachings of the Prophet Joseph Smith. So, all right, so let's just get right into this reading, and then I can go to work and hopefully finish out my paycheck and make some money doing that. This paycheck has been so hard. We had to go up to Idaho to drop my niece off from New Hampshire. She flew out before Christmas and spent the holidays with us, which was really nice. We haven't seen her for years and years and years, and she's 18 now, and she's going to college. And she got accepted to Dartmouth, to a bunch of different colleges, but she decided she wanted to go to BYU. So, and I am so happy for her. I didn't get to go to BYU. I didn't get to go to college either. But well, I did actually. I went to Dixie State down in St. George, and then I went to I can't remember what it's called, Salt Lake Community College. So anyway, but college life just wasn't for me. I like to study what I want to study, not what somebody else wants me to study. And when I was in college, it used to drive me nuts because I have critical thinking skills. And I would dispute with the teachers or professors or whatever you want to call them about different topics. And the one that drove me the most insane was in English. The English class that I took at Dixie State. It was all a bunch of liberal, textbooks. And I noticed that everywhere that it had traditional values, that talked about traditional values, they were always talked about negatively in these English textbooks that we were supposed to be learning English and pronunciation, or not pronunciation, but grammar and all of that. And everything that was all about lesbians or like homosexuality or about abortion or about any of that. It was all spoken of in these textbooks as like positive all the time. And I considered so I was like 30, I think, when I started my career in college, and I only went to 2 semesters before I realized that I love driving truck, and I probably am just going to be a truck driver for the rest of my life. I mean, I love driving truck. I don't love trucks breaking down and freezing up and being in like lines where I've got to wait to get unloaded or wait to get loaded. You know, especially I don't get paid by the hour; I get paid by the load. So yeah, there's some things about trucking that I hate, but for the most part, I love driving a truck. Ever since I was a little kid, I wanted to drive a truck. I went to diesel mechanic school when I was 16 and graduated in an advanced degree in diesel mechanics when I was 18 and had my CDL by the time I was 18. With the exception of my mission, I've been driving a semi-truck for the last 25 years, and I love it. And even during my college career, I was a part-time truck driver, locally, of course, but so I enjoy and now that we have like so back in the day, I used to spend between $200 to $400 a month at Deseret Book and Siegel Book and Tape and the Church Distribution Center, just so I could listen to things that I wanted to listen to and get historical podcasts, not podcasts, but like audio cassettes on history. I spent a lot of money at other bookstores as well. I just wanted to learn what I wanted to learn, things that I was interested in, and not be brainwashed by these liberal socialist universities that I consider brainwashing our students. And I think that's the problem with America today is that Khrushchev, the prime minister, I think prime minister, supreme leader of Russia back in the 50s, he stated at the UN, I think it was the UN, that he wouldn't have to fight a war against America, that we would fall like ripe fruit into his hands. And with the socialism that's going on in the country today and the brainwashing propaganda of the media and of the Democratic Party and other outlets in America and the universities, prophecy fulfilled. What Khrushchev did was that he put subversive plants into this country, got them into university positions, and once they got tenure, they couldn't be kicked out, and they started spewing their socialism and their communism and their hate. And I saw that at the universities when I was going to university. And my first wife, Rebecca, she is a genius, but she'd been going to college since she was like 15 or 14. Like literally, her IQ is off the charts. She has something my son has, Asperger's, and like they're really, really smart when it comes to book stuff, but like no common sense at all in any other way, shape, or form. And that's like my son, and that's like my first wife. And in fact, between that and my unresolved problems with post-traumatic stress disorder because of abuses that I had dealt with as a child, that was what caused our marriage to fail. And I was diagnosed later, and I was able to work through my PTSD. And, so, a lot of people, I didn't do it by medication. I did it by placing myself in situations once I learned what it was that I was dealing with so that I could work on myself. So I'd go to places where there were large crowds. But when you have PTSD, when you have complex PTSD, and when you've been abused and whatnot, it's really hard to deal with certain things in life. But I knew that was what my problem was, and I dealt with it, and I spent a lot of time with my back up against the wall in dance clubs, at dances, or in places where there was large groups of people, and I forced myself to deal with my problems. And I still love my ex. We're still sealed, and we were married in the Salt Lake Temple, but I haven't talked to her since 2006. And she still isn't married. She still doesn't have kids. And I feel sorry for her. She's like 38 years old now, and she's a perpetual student. So I saw the kind of brainwashing that happened with her in her life in the universities, and things that she would tell me too. So anyway, I don't know why I went off on that great big old tangent, but let's see here. So let's get right into the reading. Easter Messages, Chapter 3 of Who Crucified Christ by Ogden Kraut. Once again, before I start, you can listen to these programs on iTunes by searching Fundamentally Mormon on the podcast directory at iTunes, or at if you're on Android devices, you can go to Podcast Republic, or wherever you get your podcasts, and you can get these audio podcasts there as well. You can also go to blogtalkradio.com/fundamentally Mormon and follow me there and listen to these programs at that point. And that's the links that I put on my Facebook along with the text for people to read. I've been trying to download the audio to YouTube, but my internet connection is so bad. I'm just going to have to, I'm going to try to get some of them on there, but after hours and hours and hours of trying to get the thing, last night's program or yesterday's program to upload to YouTube, I just canceled it because it's just ridiculous and pointless, really. I can't do it. It's ridiculous. Anyway, so let's get into the reading of Easter Messages, Chapter 3 of Who Crucified Christ by Ogden Kraut. Twofold goal, reconciliation between mother and daughter religions may perhaps be achieved if we shift our focus from the question, who crucified Jesus, to the question, what crucified Jesus? And quote, What Crucified Jesus by Ellis Rivkin, page 5. An interesting article celebrating Easter appeared in the religious section of the Salt Lake Tribune on Saturday, April 11th, 1998. The title of the article was What Killed Christ? It asked a simple question that cannot be answered in a simple manner. Superficially, Jesus was killed by several nails in his hands and his feet and his feet and his wrists. I added that wrist part because that did happen. You can't put somebody up on a stake or wood and hang them by their hands with nails. The flesh will tear. You have to fasten the person to the wood by going through their wrist, and that did happen with Jesus. Let's see here. But this is not the simple answer people want to hear. Catholics, Protestants, and Jews have come up with a different kind of answer, such as the following article describes. So we're on page 16 for those of you following along. We're reading Who Killed Christ by Ogden Kraut, which you can read for free online at ogdenkraut.com. When you click on Read Ogden's Books on the main page, it'll take you to a directory of books. Just scroll down in alphabetical order all the way to 3 books from the bottom. I think it's 3 books. Anyway, and you will find Who Killed Christ, and we're on page 16. What killed Christ? Jewish scholars believe the imperial system was to blame, by Peg McKenty, Salt Lake Tribune. For nearly 2 millennia, Jews have been blamed for the death of Jesus the charismatic Nazarene who became our Christianity's Jesus Christ, the Son of God, whose crucifixion and resurrection became the foundation of one of the world's great religions. But the eminent Jewish scholar Ellis Rivkin, in a reissue of his 1984 book, What Crucified Jesus, contends that it was the Roman imperial system that ultimately was to blame for Jesus' death. Rivkin's work draws heavily on the writings of Josephus, a Jewish general and historian who was born shortly after Jesus died and was a keen participant in and an observer of the tumult of the time. By using Josephus's histories as well as the Gospels, Rivkin draws a compelling portrait of a land occupied by the forces of Rome and seething with resentment and sometimes open and deadly rebellion. The Romans viewed Judaism as a mosaic, as Rivkin puts it, of divergent theologies which, though indistinguishable from one another, were nonetheless of a single design. But for the Romans, the most important thing was that the mosaic flashed the reassuring message, render unto Caesar the things that are Caesar's, and unto God the things that are God's. Mark chapter 12, verse 17. That calculated largesse failed, however, when Jesus alone of all false prophets and charismatics that came before him, somehow so entranced his followers that they were able to believe that even death would not separate them, that he would live again, and so would they. A natural leader capable of perfect empathy with the poor and degraded, the outcast and the sinner. A leader with all the commanding characteristics of the great prophet Moses, Samuel, Elijah, Elisha. A charismatic of charismatics. Rivkin writes, who so frightened Rome that he had to die? Caiaphas, a Jewish high priest who served Pontius Pilate, and his council convinced Pilate that such a man would undermine Roman authority. Pilate made short shrifts of the case, deeming it a welcome display of Caesar's might. Continuing, quote, it was not the Jewish people who crucified Jesus, and it was not the Roman people. It was the imperialist system, a system that victimized the Jews, that victimized the Romans, and that victimized the Spirit of God, Rivkin concludes. In light of Good Friday and Easter, the Salt Lake Tribune asked two Salt Lake City clerics, Bishop George H. Nederer, I can't say that guy's name, of the Roman Catholic Diocese, and Reverend Greg Harbaugh, I guess, of Zion Lutheran Church, to offer their thoughts on Rivkin's findings. We're on page 17 for those of you following along. The Catholic response, Bishop George H. Nederer, I guess. The Roman Catholic Diocese of Salt Lake City. Ellis Rivkin does a service to Christians and non-Christians alike when he shifts the question from who to what crucified Christ. He moves his readers away from ancient recriminations and bigotry and focuses them instead on Jesus of Nazareth's historical background. Rivkin makes the point that in Roman-occupied Palestine, a popular religious teacher with no political agenda could still arouse suspicion among the rulers. If a man gathered a crowd around him and proclaimed the coming of a kingdom, he might already have set out on the path to crucifixion. That's how Rivkin sees the historical Jesus, a charismatic of charismatics, a man of exceptional personal and spiritual powers in the tradition of John the Baptizer. In violent first century Palestine, it was inevitable that Jesus would be crucified. The culprit is not the Jews, but the Roman imperial system. Hence, Rivkin claims the gospel confirms that no institution of Judaism had anything to do with the trial and crucifixion of Jesus. I can't agree. I can't agree. In fact, I don't have to agree with Rivkin in order to avoid anti-Semitism. As a Christian believer and as a student of history, I'm convinced that what crucified Christ was human sinfulness, which all men and women and all human institutions participate. Words like sin and sinfulness sometimes put off contemporary readers, but virtually everyone admits that moral evils exist, in social structures and individual behaviors alike. Those who believe in God call it sin, an offense against His love, and His call for us to love. Like Jesus, His faithful followers have taught and preached against sin in ways which prompted political rulers to persecute them. In our own country, Dietrich Bonhoeffer opposed Nazi tyranny, and you want to find out a lot. You want to read a good story. Learn about this guy, Dietrich Bonhoeffer. Awesome story. Just throwing that out there. Anyway, so this guy, Dietrich, opposed Nazi tyranny and paid for it with his life. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. opposed racial discrimination and was assassinated. Dorothy Day denounced the mindset of nuclear war and went to jail. The Christian gospel has political implications as well as economic, social, moral, and spiritual ones. When Jesus Christ came to be the light of the world, He didn't mean certain limited areas thereof. He taught His followers to see everyone and everything in the light of His teachings and example. For comfort and convenience, some people urge Christian leaders to limit their teachings to safe, general topics and church issues. But in the 19th century, some Christians denounced human slavery because of their religious faith. In this century, some Christians defended the sacredness of human life against the euthanasia, abortion, and capital punishments, again, because of their faith. Rivkin is correct about the politically charged atmosphere of the time of Jesus, but for the Christian, witness to the message of the gospel was usually involved politically charged implications, whether they concern the homelessness, the hungry, the immigration or immigrants, or the victims of domestic violence. In his play, A Man for All Seasons, Robert Bolt portrays Sir Thomas More, a Christian who lost his life for taking a moral stand against his king. In the play, there is a character called the Common Man who plays several small parts and speaks directly to the audience. After Sir Thomas's execution, the Common Man turns to the audience and says, "I'm breathing. Are you breathing too? Isn't it nice? Or it's nice, isn't it? It isn't difficult to keep alive. Friends just don't make trouble. And if you must make trouble, make the sort of trouble that's expected." Jesus Christ wanted to make the kind of saving trouble that was not expected more than He wanted to keep on breathing. That's why His Father raised Him from the dead. Jesus expects as much of us, His followers. That's why we hope to share in His Easter now and forever. The Protestant response to the crucifixion theory by Reverend Gregory P. Harbaugh. So I guess he's pastor at Zion's Evangelical Lutheran Church. Holy Week is a time of deep awe and reverence for Christians. Oftentimes, our observances coincide with the Jewish observance of Passover. See, Passover and Easter, not the same thing. Not even close. Do a study on it, I guess, but it's just not. So, which this year falls on Holy Saturday. I was actually kicked out of a church once because I was just telling the pastor, I said, that Passover doesn't fall on Friday every year, because that's what he was teaching. He's like, Pastor and Easter are the same thing, and we celebrate Passover on Friday and whatever. And I'm like, the Jewish calendar this year, actually Passover falls on a Monday. And he got really uppity with me, and he got really upset. And I went to him privately, and because I didn't want to I'm interested in meeting people that think about things and that study things. But this Citron guy in Huntington, Utah, is a charlatan of the highest order. According to what I heard, his second wife, he married, her father was pastor of a church, and I can't remember if the headquarters is in Price. I think it is. I know they're connected to Price, and there's other churches in this area within 150 miles that they're connected to. But anyway, so they gave him this church to run, and the guy, he studies his sermons so he can preach it, but he has no sincerity. In fact, the last Sunday I was there, he was very angry at everybody, yelling at everyone from the pulpit that they needed to give him more money. And it was like, what? Anyway, but so I was just I was interested in talking to him about, hey, do you know that the Passover, because he was teaching this crap from the pulpit that he, not somebody who would actually study theology at all, somebody who fell into the position, and because of his wife's father, his father-in-law, was able to get a position of authority in this church and make money from it. And the guy drives around these sports cars. He's all flashy. He's got these Harley Davidsons. It's just, he gets rich off the backs of the poor, through tithes and offerings, and he complains about they don't give him enough money. Well, Carl, if you ever listen to this program, how about you not be so flashy and buy these sports cars and these Harley Davidsons? How about you serve the people? Oh, I know you guys do your breakfasts and stuff, but how about you serve the people? Where's your food pantries? Where's your drug and alcohol ministries? How are you helping the community? It seems to me like this man is helping himself. But anyway, and I wasn't rude to him at that time. But he said something to the effect of, if you ever teach my congregants this, I will, I can't remember what his threat was. Anyway, he did kick me out of his church, and I made a big scene in front of everybody, as I do from time to time. So I'm a little bit of a short-fused stick of dynamite when I have to deal with these kind of charlatans. But anyway, but Passover and Easter, they're not the same. Passover, or Pesach, is the beginning of the feast of unleavened bread. It is one of the Moedim, one of the holy days of Jehovah that we are told to keep in the Torah as a perpetual feast for all generations of time. Ishtar is the goddess of the Babylonians and the Assyrians, and I can't remember all the names that she goes under, but that is where Easter comes from. The whole dyeing eggs thing that is a tradition, if you know the history of it, and we're going to learn it right now because I'm going off on this tangent, taking you with me. So, the religion of Ashtara is a religion of reproduction and sex, and I don't know. I don't know all the words for it. But so what would happen was they had a day every year called Easter where men and women would go into these temples, or men mostly, and have these virgins in these temples, and they would have sex, lots and lots of sex. And these virgins would be impregnated by these men on this day, this holy day of Ashtar, right? 9 months later, they start having their kids, these little babies. Then on Easter the next year, they would murder their babies, drain the blood from their bodies into these bowls, and dye eggs as a sacrifice to Ashtar. In other times in history, they had these big brass statues to Baal, and they had 7 different compartments, and in each compartment there was an animal that would go into the compartment. One of the compartments was where they put infant babies. They would set a fire underneath these large brass statues and burn these animals and these infant children and cook them alive in these idols that they created. The front of the statue, the bowl of Baal, would have kind of like a horn, it was within the statue, but it was opened up, and the noises that came from the babies and the animals inside that were being burned alive or baked alive in these huge brass statues was the sound that they were looking for. Easter is a disgusting holiday, and the traditions of Easter come from paganism. Many of them come from paganism. Jehovah, our Elohim, has commanded us in the Torah not to worship him the way the pagans worship their gods, not to even do these things. I celebrate Pesach or Passover because it is one of the holy days of Jehovah, and I will not touch Easter with a 10-foot pole, because I am not going to corrupt God's holy days with pagan holidays. Anyway, let's see here. Oh man, I lost my place, but I'm pretty sure it'll be easy to find here. Let's see. Oh, I passed it. Getting close. Okay. So this is Reverend Gregory P. Harbaugh, I guess. Harbaugh, there's no R. It's Harbaughh. Anyway, but he is a pastor at Zion's Evangelical Lutheran Church. Holy Week, in a time of deep awe and reverence for Christians, oftentimes our observance coincides with the Jewish observance of Passover or Pesach, which this year falls on Holy Saturday, which is so that year when this article was written, The high Sabbath of Pesach and the beginning of the Feast of Unleavened Bread actually fell on the Holy Sabbath, which is always Saturday, not Sunday. Approaching the history of Jewish-Christian relations in the light of any claim regarding the crucifixion of Jesus faces high levels of sensitivity and is thus fraught with the peril. Ellis Rivkin has done a great service in bringing the historical perspective to bear for the contemporary reader. Any such perspective, including my own, will be offered through the lens of nearly 2,000 years of subsequent history, much of it tragic with regard to the I don't know what this word is. And it's kind of funny because when I was reading this earlier, I actually highlighted it and looked it up on Google, but I can't remember how it's pronounced. It's bicameral, Bicameral. With regard to this people of God, I write as a Lutheran Christian, painfully aware of those parts in our legacy that have been used and misused to the detriment and suffering of our Jewish sisters and brothers. See, Luther, I really, really like what he did as far as Reformation goes, but he was an avid anti-Semite. Huge. In fact, Hitler got a lot of his stuff in Mein Kampf and his beliefs from his study of Luther. Anyway, so this Lutheran minister who follows after this massive anti-Semite Luther is, saying that he's painfully aware of how horrible they have been to the Jews, let alone the Christians. As I look back through the years with Rivkin, and Rivkin's a Jew, by the way, if you didn't get that, I too ask not so much who, but what crucified Jesus. I concur with his basic conclusion that it was the Roman imperial system, not the system of Judaism, that was at fault. But I do so with a different twist. Judaism in the first century, for all the reasons delineated in Rivkin's book, was very much part of the Roman imperial system. My quarrel with Rivkin, it is his Cartesian effort, and that's another word I looked up, and I was like, what does that word mean? And I Googled it, and I read a bunch of different definitions, and now I can't even remember right now what it means. Anyway, with Rivkin is his Cartesian efforts to separate religion and politics in a time when such a division was not tangible, and his use of Josephus, a man with far too much on his own conscience and far too potent an agenda. Clearly, he worked to establish Pharisaic as the only viable leadership for Judaism after the tragedy of 70 A.D. He was, after all, a Roman collaborator under Vespasius and the Flavian empires, even taking the name of Flavius. So that's the guy who was, I think he was emperor of Rome from 68 to 79 AD. And I looked this up too, and I am sorry. I'm actually sitting in my minivan on my cell phone with my cell phone reading, and letting my truck air up because it takes forever to air up, and just doing the radio show. My kids get out of school early on Wednesdays, and today's Wednesday, so I was able to leave the house and maybe start a little bit earlier, which is nice because then I won't have to drive so late at night. So let's see. Even taking the surname Flavius, his own amalgamation of Hellenistic and Semitic views may or may not be reflective on his own time, let alone the time of Jesus, especially his undertaking of immortality on the soul and resurrection of the body, which stands as popular opposites. in biblical literature. For better or for worse, the materials in the gospel is closer to the time of Christ and is practically the only source of information about the Jerusalem situation prior to 70 AD, when the temple, administrative offices, and all records were destroyed by the Romans. Nevertheless, the question remains, who and what killed Jesus? In the Gospel of Luke, a centurion at the crucifixion is portrayed as declaring, surely the man is innocent or righteous, depends on the translation. Portrayed declaring, surely the man is innocent or righteous, depends on the translation you use. In the years after Jesus' time, as Rivkin points out, this is not an innocent man, however righteous. His teachings, healings, exorcism, challenges to authority, and his charismatic authority put Jesus directly in the line of fire of an already explosive situation. Crucifixion was inevitable and was declared necessary by civil and religious law in deepest collusion. Who killed Jesus are the powers that be. What killed him was simply the need of those powers and wealth to protect the status quo, the imperial cult, and culture. Some things do not change much. Death squads in Central America, government-sponsored assassins, religious groups that want to maintain their status, and prerequisites, secret backroom deals cut by a powerful who will continue to to the detriment of the poor, homeless, aged, sick, and young. The message of the Gospel of John is that the Word of God, now wholly identifiable with Jesus of Nazareth, the Messiah or Christ, continues to live and breathe in and under history because Jesus lives. That he is Jesus, the 30-something itinerant, charismatic Jewish dissident, is what makes this good. That he is risen after being crucified under the full weight of the law is what makes it news. Our history suggests that Jews and Christians know enough about such painful history to join together on behalf of the oppressed and needy rather than stand apart. Perhaps our Lord is working through scholars like Rivkin and others to provide the groundwork for such reconciliation. The Spirit is blowing. May the whole people of God experience exodus and resurrection from the demands of imperial power. What a marvelous body that would be. So that was chapter 3 of Who Crucified Christ. Guest call-in number is 917-889-8827. That's 917-889-8827. And I'm going to give just a little tiny bit of time for people to call in. If anybody calls in, they can have their questions. They can ask their questions or give their comments. But I do need to, excuse me, I do need to get going. I got about 13 hours worth of driving in front of me from this point, 13 to 14. I should be done, 5:30 or 6 in the morning, and it is just a little after 3:30 now. So, all right, so I don't see anybody calling in, and that's normal. I'll just refresh my screen to make sure. And no, I don't see anybody calling in. So, and that's fine. I do enjoy having phone calls, but at the same time, I kind of want to get going and get started. Today is the last day of my pay period, and I am so far off from my goals. I mean, oh my gosh, I'm not even going to hit $1,500 this paycheck, and most of it, most of that reason is, well, first of all, I went to Idaho to drop my niece off, but then second of all, this truck, well, like yesterday, I come out at 4, start the truck, get the tractor aired up, and then I apply the trailer brakes, and nothing happens. So I called the owner of the truck, and I said, hey, something's going on with this. We put alcohol in the lines, nothing happened. Anyway, long story short, he had to take a bunch of stuff apart. There was ice in the lines, and I did not get started until 9:30 last night. I was supposed to drive from 4 to midnight so that I could try to get some sleep in so I could watch my baby. I didn't get home until, I can't even remember, but I think I didn't get to bed till like 6 this morning. So I don't know how long I'm going to be able to drive for, but I got to try to do the most I can. So anyway, just checking this thing here one last time. Make sure I'm not going to leave anyone out in the studio and hang up on them. And nope, nobody's called. So anyway, this has been a Zion's Redemption Radio Network program. You can find these programs on iTunes at Fundamentally Mormon and read the stuff at facebook.com/LAZURUS 1977, as well as I think there's like 600 or 700 videos on YouTube you can go take a look at if you'd like, talking about mostly religious topics. And that YouTube is youtube.com. youtube.com/user/God is my compass. So, all right. Thank you, everyone, for listening to the program. Take care. God bless. Don't forget to share. Goodbye.